President Trump comes out to Asia, and I think at the end of the day, just this trip alone may end up in $2 trillion of investment. President Trump came into Asia, into China's backyard, and the Asian countries want to do deals with the U.S. They want to bring their manufacturing to the U.S. They want to trade with the U.S. We've made the U.S. the best venue for manufacturing. The president's bringing back precision manufacturing.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent highlighting the president's historic trip to Asia with Maria. President says that he's secured more than $3 trillion in deals for America. Now, Japan is set to invest $460 billion in American critical energy infrastructure and AI. South Korea pledging $65 billion for defense technology. China vowing around $35 billion for American soybeans and sorghum, while Malaysia and Thailand are set to invest more than $13 billion in American energy. The president also negotiating a trade agreement with China that's not signed yet, but it would reduce tariffs on China from 57% to 47% in exchange for Beijing's crackdown on fentanyl and easing of export controls on rare earth minerals. I want to bring in former World Bank and IFC outside counsel in Beijing, Katie Zacharia. Katie, your reaction to this? In particular, we're waiting for this deal to be signed with the Chinese.
Yeah, well, look, no other president can do what President Trump has done, not just with China, but with Japan, with Malaysia, and ahead of that, with Australia and really the entire Pacific Rim. President Trump understood that he needed this multilateral leverage and these deals with the nations around China to bring China to the table in a friendly way, but also in a serious way that they were going to make this deal. And I want to highlight, especially here in California, Cheryl, the fentanyl issue. Look, President Trump, in his time in office, we've been, 10 months? It's gone down. Fentanyl seizures across the border has gone down 55%, whereas Joe Biden's first 15 months in office, it went up 70%. So President Trump has looked at fentanyl, and he's looked at the precursor manufacturing in Beijing, in China, and he's really cutting the head off the proverbial snake when it comes to this. And in doing so, reduce the tariffs 10% on China. So we see something historic, but it also saves lives in the United States.
Yeah, no, and certainly we have seen those fentanyl labs along the Mexican border on the Mexico side. I mean, they're shut down. They were shut down almost immediately when President Trump came into office. Also, AI is a big topic when it comes to China. It's been a top priority for the Trump administration. Maria asked NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang about the competition on Sunday Watch.
What we really have done is conceded and retreated from the second largest technology market in the world. And President Trump sees that. And it's also true that we underestimated China's ability to accelerate their indigenous technology industry. They manufacture now millions of AI chips. It is very clear now their military doesn't rely on American technology. In fact, we've been banned from returning back to the Chinese market by the Chinese. Right. And so I think it's very clear they don't rely on American technology. It's also common sense that the military of China, with all of their local capabilities and their local chips, wouldn't rely on American technology and American software for their military applications. I think that's all. It makes perfect sense, and I think it's played out now that the policies of the last 4 years has really backfired, and it's time for us to revert back to Trump 45 policies.
And chip manufacturing in this country, Katie, your thoughts?
Absolutely. What an incredible interview with Jensen Huang, really understanding AI and the need for this energy growth in the United States, but also engagement in this arena. So look, I think that the chip debate and the chip race is going to be one of the things that determines for the next 5 to 10 years the really cutting edge on national security. And Jensen Huang, it really highlighted energy as one of the key factors for the United States on the national security, on AI development. And Xi Jinping talked about this in his address with APEC. He was really trying to sell green energy where we cannot sustain AI on green energy. And President Trump has called that out as well.
Well, Xi Jinping did vow to protect free trade in, quote, turbulent times when he was speaking at APEC last week. And a lot of analysts are saying it's a dig at President Trump. The pair meeting face-to-face on the sidelines of the summit in South Korea. First meeting in 6 years, Katie. Your thoughts about that? What we witnessed, it was pretty historic.
Incredibly historic to see the friendship and the historic trade talks between two world superpowers. And I think as much as he is vowing to do open trade and allow for open trade, he's also ensuring that China will maintain domestic energy dominance. And while he sells green energy, having lived in Beijing for 3 years, I can attest to this. While green energy is sold to the rest of the world, China is really on the cutting edge of Generation 4 nuclear development. Nuclear technology is looking at fusion development because China understands very clearly that AI will only be developed with dominant energy independent resources like nuclear energy. So I think that there's this two sides of his mouth that he's speaking from, and I do respect Xi Jinping and this deal. However, I think it is incumbent upon the United States to compete in energy dominance, which is exactly what President Trump has done. And he sees that we cannot compete in AI without being energy dominant once again.
Do you believe that the Chinese will scale back energy purchases from Russia? Real quick before you go.
I think that it will be contingent upon whether or not President Trump and Putin are able to make a deal with Ukraine. I think you see these world superpowers coalescing and coming together. If China does reduce on Russia and then make a deal with the United States, that'll put pressure on Russia to probably pull back and maybe settle the deal with Ukraine. So time will tell. I think everyone is looking for peace and prosperity, and hopefully, again, President Trump can solve that Russia-Ukraine conflict, and that will be the 9th conflict that he's solved, and maybe by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, hopefully, I agree with you. I hope that you were right. It's just, getting this deal signed with the Chinese and having them honor their commitments, which they have many times not done. Katie Zacharia, thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.